Welcome to Hierasmus and Friends, Stories Behind the Science, hosted by Hierasmus, the leading clinical platform for ABA therapy. Each episode highlights inspiring stories from experts and individuals with unique perspectives. Join us as we explore valuable insights and foster empowerment within the autism community. Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Amy Coat, and this week we're diving into a conversation with an inspiring group of women who are both BCBAs and mothers. I had the pleasure of meeting them through panel presentations at CalABA and ABAI. We'll start with brief introductions before exploring the raw reality of parenting as a behavior analyst. We'll also wrap up by sharing some valuable support resources, including the launch of a new community called Haven. Hey ladies, thank you all for being here today. How's it going?
Hey, so
Good,
good.
good. Thanks for having us, Amy. We're so excited.
Yes, awesome. Okay, well, we'll get things started with Kajza. If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about yourself professionally and personally, and then share how you brought this group of women together.
Yeah, so my name is Kajza Coats. I am a BCBA by trait. I have been in the ABA field for, I always have to do the math and I can never remember. I'm just going to say for a long time, double digits. Can we just leave it at double digits? That ages me enough, right? Over double digits. Currently, our vice president, or senior vice president of clinical services at Centria, or Centria Autism and Centria Healthcare, overseeing services on the West Coast, which also includes Texas and New Mexico. So it's a west-ish coast. I live in California, and I've been here my whole life, born and raised California, SoCal, NorCal. I have a beautiful, beautiful family, one partner spouse that I have been with for, goodness, we just celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary, and we've been together, I think, 17 years, which is wild to me. We've been together as long as a high schooler, our senior in high school. And we have two beautiful children, Kaylee, who is 9.5, going on 16. She's already 16. Y'all have seen the panelists here. I've seen those pictures. She's a wild child, but she is fantastic and definitely my mini me. And then we have a new little one who a week ago today went from filming, turned 1, and that is Declan. We're so happy to have him in our lives.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was just going to say thanks so much for sharing. But yeah, go. I forgot we're going to talk also about how we all came together. So sorry for
Yeah.
the interruption.
So speaking of Declan and then the year, or being a year old, I went on maternity leave a year ago. It was like August 5th of 2023, so a little over a year ago. And while I was on maternity leave, I was doing a lot of thinking and reflecting on just life as a whole. But I think in particular, all of the things that I had gone through, and I know we'll talk about it later in the podcast of with my daughter when she was younger, but also when trying to conceive our son. And it just really made me reflect on some feelings and some things like I felt isolated in, but also ways in which I wish I had known more about, and ways in which some people had really helped me. Like I remember when I had my daughter, one of my coworkers at the time, I was a BCBA practicing in a multidisciplinary clinic, and my colleagues at the time had bought me like covers. They were like, get a portable pump, like all of these little tips and tricks that had I not had fellow behavior analytic mamas, I wouldn't have thought about, and wouldn't have even crossed my mind for the unique aspects of our career. So I was thinking about that and just how across our industry, we have a lot of young caregivers, but young individuals who maybe don't have those people to be able to connect with to support them, or just haven't had that level of transparency to know, like, hey, you're not going through it alone. So I had this kind of wild idea of like, I wonder if anyone would be interested in a panel. Like, just let's see if there's any interest there. And so I did what every millennial, geriatric millennial, I guess is what I'm called, would do. And I posted on Instagram. And
Sounds so
um,
sad. There's nothing wrong with it.
I mean, I also had a geriatric
Hashtag
pregnancy, so um, and so I posted on my Instagram because I don't have TikTok, so it was Instagram. And Amy and Robyn and Rachel all responded. A few other people responded as well, and said they were interested in the panel. And we put our panel together at Calaba, and then at Calaba it was, I could go on and on about just what an amazing experience that is, and maybe we can talk about that in a little bit. But we had such a wonderful experience there. And Keisha, we had the opportunity, I know Rachel worked closely with Keisha in the past, and I had the opportunity to know Keisha, and she came up to us at the panel and was really interested and was like, come on in, like let's work together. And so really just had this wonderful group of all of us with very different backgrounds, very different experiences, come together. And so we presented at Calaba, and then we also, Keisha joined us yes, ABAI.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for bringing us all together, Kajza. Going to turn it over to Rachel if you want to share a little bit about your career and your family.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rachel Scott. I'm the Director of Clinical Development and Practicum. I have also been in the field in the double digits, going on like 15 years now. BCBA for 10. I celebrate my 10-year anniversary on August 31st. So that's pretty exciting.
We need like the little like fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty exciting. I have been, I'm married. I've been married for a long time. We've been together for 21 years. It's also a long time. So I'm no longer in the land of like a high schooler age. Like now, if our relationship could like do things, they could like gamble and like buy alcohol. Like it's a whole new level, right?
I'm thinking graduate from college. You're thinking gamble and buy alcohol.
So my husband and I have 4 children together. 3 of our children, they're my stepchildren, but I call them mine because I helped raise them, obviously with us being together for 21 years. And they were all still pretty young when we met. And then we have a 16-year-old. So that is a whole other roller coaster. I bring to this group, I like to believe, the perspective of having mostly adult children and how that's been.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. Okay, Robyn, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is so fun already. So I just love being here. I love being part of this panel. Kajza, thank you for bringing us all together, and Amy for inviting us on the podcast today. So I am Robyn Vasquez-Gutierrez. I am also born and raised in California, spent most of my life in Southern California. And I'm in Sacramento, California now. And someone was like, how long have you been here? And same thing, like girl math, right? Like it doesn't, I'm like, I don't know, 13 years, something like that. So I've been here for a long time and it feels like home now. And I am a board certified behavior analyst as well. However, I have kind of taken a pivot outside of the traditional ABA scope in the last year and a half. Again, what is time? And opened my own business as a self-compassion and embodiment coach. So I use tools like acceptance and commitment therapy, as well as breathwork. I'm a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. And I have been a BCBA since 2009. So we'll let the listeners do the math on that. But I think it's something like 16 years. And let me tell you about my family. That's important. I am a mom, so I have a 6-year-old son named Jordan. He is just amazing and fantastic. And I have a partner, Joaquin. We got married in June of 2023. So we're toddlers in terms of marriage, but it's amazing. So I'm remarried. And I mention that because I think later in this conversation, I'll talk a little bit about my experience of navigating a divorce and a career with a young child.
Awesome. Thank you, Robyn. Keisha, do you mind introducing yourself?
Of course. Hello, I'm Keisha Muhammad. I am a BCBA as well. I'm the baby of the group though, because I've been a BCBA for about 3 years now, almost 4 next year. Let's see, I have 4 children. My oldest is 24, or I'm sorry, 23. She'll be 24 in a couple of weeks. But after that, I have a 16-year-old, an 11-year-old, and then an 8-year-old. And time has flown. I mean, boy, with those babies, you never know. They start off so small and then they grow up already and they're out the house. And then you're like, wait a minute, did I teach you all the things? I hope so. But
never know.
As far as work, I currently work for a school district. I also live in California. I work for a large school district, of course, San Bernardino City School District. I don't know if I should have said that, but hey, it's out there now, so whatever.
There's Google.
Right, right. And I've been there for about 9 months now, and that's been a whole different experience in itself. Just going from insurance ABA to now ABA in the school system where they don't know what we do. So, but with that, yeah, I mean, that's me in a little bit of a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you, Keisha. Well, now we're going to take a look at some of the personal challenges and possibly even some ethical dilemmas that you all have faced. So this first question, I will point it towards Kajza or Robyn. Can one of you tell us about a time where you recognized that you were going through a challenge that could potentially impact your effectiveness at work? And what was it and what did you do? So Kajza, would you like to answer that?
I am glad that I kept tissues nearby. I did not plan this. It's just happened to be there. I'm a crier, so I'll preface it for everybody. But I kind of hinted at this earlier, you know, in our career, in a lot of our careers who have worked in particular in the autism space, we work with children. And we as a family were so fortunate to have our daughter. She is incredible. But my husband and I struggled for a long time with fertility. And it was really challenging to have this struggle and to go and work with children and a family who mom is pregnant and celebrate knowing internally, right? You're having this conflict. And I know it's not isolated to our industry. And I remember in particular, I had a miscarriage and was really struggling. It was a weird part in our career, and I was working for an organization. We had come together. There were five of us actually. How I met Robyn before this, but ended up meeting Robyn through our work together. And I'd had a miscarriage while I was meeting with a brand new colleague, and wasn't at a place to say it. And my husband was gone, and um, I tried to wrap up the meeting in a professional manner and rushed home and just cried. um, and took a couple of days off and um, tried to find the space to process. And honestly, the way that I was able to work through that and support was by reaching out or by having my community that I could trust and share that information with. So, Robyn is one of those. We were co-leaders at the time, so I was able to lean on her to step away and say, I can't be present right now. Like I am not in the space to do this. And had some friends, thankfully, while my husband was gone, that came and picked up my daughter from school and took her to their house and ordered food and made sure we had groceries. Um, and so it was an ongoing. I mean, we ended up having that was in 2019, and we kind of had figured we weren't able to get pregnant. Like at that point, we had talked about the potential of like, do we do, fertility tests and fertility treatment? But I know, like for my own mental health, I probably wouldn't do well with that type of treatment, just with some other things. And so I kind of made that decision, my husband and I, to not go that route. And we had kind of assumed like, all right, it's not going to happen. It's okay. We're going to be happy with with our daughter. She's amazing, and maybe that's just all we're meant to have, and that's okay. Like it shouldn't be just that's what we're meant to have. Like she's enough. And then I got pregnant. And it was a complete shock. Like we were not expecting it. And something that I haven't, I think, even shared with this group is after we were about a month in, I had some significant bleeding again. And it was terrifying. I was like, oh, not again, not again. Excuse me. Sorry, I got to see. Hopefully my hair looked good that way. But it was the same situation where I was so fortunate in that aspect to have some colleagues and friends, some friends, like we moved to a different town, so we didn't have the same community, but we had some friends where we could drop off my daughter. And they were able to have her stay with them while we went to the hospital to get checked up on. I was able to tell my colleagues at work, like, this is what's happening. I can't be here. I need to step away, and really having that support from my community in order to do so. And so I think for myself, like it was isolating in the fact that I didn't know other people before this had gone through, before this experience had gone through something similar. It's not something we talk about a lot. But then also the aspect of being able to lean on a community made it so that I was able to get through it. I was able to like take a little bit of time off work, but able to go back to work and not have it impact me to where I wasn't able to provide support. But that's because of having some of that vulnerability with people about what I was going through. Had I kept it alone, I don't think I kept it inside and not been transparent. I don't know if I would have been able to go back to work. I don't know if I would have been able to compartmentalize. And so for me, it was really leaning on a community to be there to fill in some of those gaps when I wasn't able to do it. To be able to, the time, both positions I was in, both times it happened. Sorry, when those things happened across infertility and the miscarriages, both of the situations that I covered here, I was in a time where I could share that uh, I was in a leadership position, so I could lean on some other people to support. And I think if I was in a clinical role, right, leaning on my clinical director, frontline BCBA role, I would have leaned on my clinical director or somebody. But it's hard to be that transparent, be vulnerable about those things. But I think had I not, I don't know if I would have been able to get through it in that same manner.
Awesome. Well, Kajza, thank you so much for having the courage to be vulnerable and share that story, because unfortunately, we know that you're not alone. And this is the reality and a challenge that many other behavior analysts might also face. So thank you so much. Robyn, do you have a challenge or another story that you would like to share on this topic?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as I'm listening to Kaj's story and as I'm about to share my story, it's just this reminder of like we're all human experiencing life, and we go through different chapters and we go through different struggles. But when we lean on community, when we lean on the people who can help us see through our darkest days, that is where there's hope and hope can be found. And it's always hard to find that in the moment. So the story I want to share takes me back to 2017, 2018. So this was the year my son was born. I was married at the time to my son's father. We were married for 5 years, together for 5, so spent 10 years together. Had Jordan, best miracle of my life. Kind of similar story. I kind of never knew if I was going to be a mom. I grew up never having that like dream or that vision of like, I'm going to be a mom. But then I reached my 30s and I was like, I need to have a baby now. And I ended up with Jordan, and he's my reason why. He's like the biggest blessing I could have ever asked for. He keeps me motivated. He teaches me more than I feel like I teach him. And anyway, he's born, and I have no idea that at the time, my ex-husband was unhappy in our relationship or in our marriage. And in fact, in hindsight, he had said, well, I thought the baby was going to like solve this and fix this. And we know that that's not the case, right? Like if there's issues that are underlying with a relationship, you've got to fix it at the root. And so I went back to work in January of 2018. And that was kind of a rocky transition back, just because, I was 3 months postpartum, hormones are still kind of raging. I remember at the time, a few days after my son was born, there was the shooting in Vegas, and I just like did not recover. I spent a lot of time on the couch crying. I was just very emotional. And I think that my postpartum journey probably included some postpartum depression that was, undiagnosed, untreated, and just I was left kind of navigating that on what felt like on my own at the time. In hindsight, I can see that there were people who I was really leaning on. So anyway, go back to work in January. That's kind of a struggle, doing all the things, like Kajza mentioned, learning to nurse while I'm driving. I got the little electric thing to plug into the USB thing.
The adapter.
Yeah. the adapter. I'm like driving with pumps on. I'm like, it's all good. Hi, everybody. It's all fine. Supplies started drying up because I think I'm stressed from home life, unbeknownst to me that a divorce was on the way, pretty soon after that. So in about March, April of that year, that's when I found out that my ex-husband was having an affair, and we were going to ultimately end up in divorce. And I felt like at the time my life was over. Like what just happened? We just had a baby, and I didn't expect to be a single mom all of a sudden. And I just felt like, as a perfectionist, as someone who like strived for like doing what society had told me to do, that I failed. That's how I felt at the moment, at the time. And I know that that showed up at work because I'm transitioning back into work. This is going on at home. And the company I worked for at the time, something I've never shared with anyone, I'm going to share it here because at the time my ego got in the way, but I've grown a lot since then. At the time, the company that I worked for sort of offered me a demotion. I think that they had started to see how some of my emotionality was showing up in the work that I was doing. I was a director at the time. There was, as a director in this field, there's constant decisions, constant fires, just constant things. And my inability to fully be present to that, I think, showed up. And my ego got in the way of that. And in hindsight, I think it was such a blessing in disguise that that company had offered me an alternative position. And then they phrased it like, no, this isn't a demotion. This is great. This is where your skill set is going to be best used and supported. But of course, again, ego was like, what? My life is falling apart. My marriage is over. I don't have this position that I'm coming back to. Like, what is happening? And so I actually made the decision to step away at that point. I was like, I need a full reset. I'm moving into an apartment as a single mom. I'm going to get a new job and just start fresh. And so I think that while I think back to 2018 Robyn, who was experiencing those challenges, who felt like my life was over, that I would never recover, I cared a lot about how that showed up, how that presented, what people thought about me. I'm so grateful for that chapter of my life because I think it taught me so many lessons. It allowed me to really show up and truly figure out I was a mama bear, honey badger. I was like, okay, I have a child now, so I'm going to figure this out. And it just reminded me of my strength despite feeling like this is it, it's over. It really wasn't. It was an opportunity to shine and grow stronger.
There's two things you shared. Sorry, I'm going to go off the cuff a little bit,
go.
but there's two things you shared, Robyn, that were really resonating with me. And I'm going to imagine potentially others that are here. And I don't think we've talked about this as a group before. So, but you mentioned the possibility of some postpartum that you didn't even recognize in the moment. And I think we see that now more on social media and places and whatnot, but there is so much. And at least for me, I will say, there's so much of just some of it's mental control issues, which I'm working through. But so much of you have to do it all or be it all or put on this face of this person that always has it together, to where I feel I can say I can imagine that I definitely have gone through spouts, whether significant diagnosable postpartum or not. That is real. Your hormones going out of your hormones are all out of whack after that. And just there is this expectation of still, or that whether it's society, whether we put it on ourselves, whatever that is, of you still need to put it together and you still need to be be it all, even when you've just had a baby, or you've had a baby, or you have children now. And I don't think that's something that we've talked about just as a group too, of just that's a huge change in your life and in your body, in your physical health and your mental health, that I don't think is acknowledged enough, especially when you have 12 weeks off and you go back to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Rachel, can you talk to us about some of the unique challenges you faced as a parent and caregiver and behavior analyst, and how you've navigated those?
Yeah, well, I really just want to take a moment, I think, to just give space to the stories that Kajza and Robyn just shared. Those, I feel just listening to you both, you've had such just challenges I think that we all face, and but you were able to come out and find inspiration and continue to grow and learn. And so I just want to say, like, I find you both very like inspiring, even from your little Instagram stories. I love it.
Thank you.
Keep doing it. But I will talk a little bit about myself and like, um, bear with me if I cry and stumble through a little bit too. I've only shared some of these stories like in those 2 panel groups at CalABA and ABAI. And it's, I think, to Kajza's point and Robyn's point, like we, as moms, we don't share things because we're just supposed to handle it. We're just supposed to like have that be our home life, and or like whatever we're experiencing, and put it away in a box, and you can never bring it to work. Like that's not professional, and not own the fact that like our behavior is going to be impacted by these like setting events, and so quite a while ago now, it was probably about 10 years ago, just as I was becoming a new behavior analyst. I'd already been in the field for a few years. My middle son, Joshua, who was about 6 or 7 at the time, he's now 21. He was a baby when my husband and I met. And he was diagnosed with autism. And I had already been working with individuals with autism in my work. So I had a little bit of a reference, and, something that I would have never, shared with another parent, especially not a parent that I was working with, was that my son was autistic, and I was experiencing grief, in a very, different way. Yes, like my child was with me, he was beautiful, he was perfect, he was everything, but there's a level of grief that you go through when your child receives any type of diagnosis that might impact their future. And so in that time, my husband and I are going through this process of like, how do we best help our son? How do we make sure he's successful in school? Because he was not being successful in school, and he wasn't making friends. And you could just tell that it was taking a toll on him, as well as our family, like interactions. And in that same moment, my oldest son, was 17, about 3 months out from turning 18, had his first schizophrenic break. And we didn't know what it was at first. Like we were, we're spitballing and being really honest and being like, is he just like, it's just a bad trip? Like we didn't know what was going on. Like, what kind of drugs have you taken? And we sat, with him, like literally my husband and I took turns, like essentially, I don't know, like babysitting our 17-year-old who was going through psychosis for about 3 days, until we finally said, this isn't something he's sleeping off. It's been 3 days. It's got to be something, whatever it was would have had time to leave his system. And we take him to the ER, and they admit him. And initially, they diagnosed him with what was called schizophreniform, which is basically saying we think he has schizophrenia, but it hasn't been long enough for us to know. Over the course of that year, as we're, working through things with my middle son's school, my 17, 18-year-old son was in and out of mental health hospitals 3 or 4 different times, staying anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks in each stint. And it was really hard to like be present in that moment for our middle son, as well as my youngest son, who was at the time about 2 years old, being present for him and being able to also support our 17, 18-year-old son, who went from being just so full of life, like just like the most gifted, talented musician you've ever met, and who is so charismatic and just so stubborn at different times, and to this person who just like he can't even trust himself. He can't trust the things that he's believing or seeing or thinking about, and he can't trust what you're saying when you're telling him everything's gonna be okay. And you're trying to just hold your family together, and you're holding down a job, and trying to show up for all the people that you're supposed to be there for. And it was really hard, really. But instead of dealing with the situation, like seeking out, maybe going to see a therapist and saying, hey, like things are really hard for me right now. I I went into like tough mode. I'm gonna just say like, no, like this is fine. Everybody's fine. We're all gonna be fine, and even as like my husband is laying here with me and saying like, I will give my life for my son to just be able to have his back. And I'm just like, no, he's gonna have his life back. He's gonna have his life back. And our other son is gonna have his too. And so I just went into fix it mode. And I just turned into Mr. Fix It. And so at this time, my youngest son is also starting to display some of the characteristics of being autistic as well. And I'm like, okay, here's what we're doing. You're getting a behavior contract, you're getting a task analysis for brushing your teeth, and you're getting a mindfulness meditation every day. And that's what I did, is like, I just turned on Rachel being the behavior analyst all the time. Like, I'm not mom anymore. I'm here to help you fix yourself and make sure you can be independent. You're not going to grow up and be dependent on us. You're going to be able to do it yourself. You're going to be able to live by yourself. And it wasn't until I was talking with my mentor at the time, and we were talking about some ACT principles and things like that. And she was like, so Rachel, like, what do you do to build your relationship with your children, And I was like, well, we make sure we practice brushing our teeth really well every day. And we have a really significant, like, structured day every single day. And on the weekends, we wash our clothes and we clean our rooms and we make sure that we can do it all by ourselves. And she was like, there's just this pause. Like, you could just like, I couldn't figure out why the air was so thick. And she was like, no, Rachel, what do you do to have a relationship with your child or your children? And I was just really taken aback, and I didn't understand the question. And it wasn't until we got off the phone and I had a few hours to just kind of come back and reflect. And I was like, wow, I have not had a relationship with my children outside of I'm your BCBA. And everything I'm telling you and doing with you is telling you that who you are is not okay. Because I'm telling you that you need to fix yourself, or that you need to be something to deserve love from me. And that was just like, it was such a reckoning for me. I had to take a step back from everything that I had been doing and just say, you know what, like, at the end of the day, I'm your mom and I'm going to love you unconditionally. It doesn't matter if you're dependent on me for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter if you are not able to like brush your back teeth. Like, I can take that step back and just be here for you as a mom and accept you for who you are and let you know that who you are doesn't need fixing, doesn't need, me to be a behavior analyst for you. And so I think that was such a crazy mind shift for me to be able to like move into that space where it's like, at work, I'm a behavior analyst. I can talk to you about whatever behavior analytic principle you want to talk about. But when I come to being at home, I need to cherish and uphold and respect the relationship that I have with my children first, before anything else. So
that was awesome, Rachel. Thank you so much for just opening up and being so real. And there's just, I know so many things that are going to resonate with others on that. So just really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that story.
Yeah, I want to say something too. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Robyn. Go.
No, you go. Okay. Well, again, Rachel, just acknowledging your story too, and thank you for being vulnerable, for sharing that. I'm sending you so much love, and I can feel your feelings around all of that, and how beautiful it was to have that mentor ask you that simple question, because that's, I think, what we're trying to build here with Haven, right? Is like opportunity to support one another, to ask people simple questions that allow time and space for reflection, because we all have we all know what we need. We all have it within us. Sometimes we just need a little space. So I know that that was extremely challenging, but I love that you had that person help you kind of navigate
Yeah.
that.
And I think I'm so grateful for that person in that moment. I don't think that they realized what they were saying, but I don't think they realized like the trueness of what they were saying, or the impact that what they were saying was going to have on me, in reflecting back on these things. So, and it's like, I think, yeah, giving the space to just take a moment and just like say it's okay to just be a mom, and it's okay to just be a person. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes, like, everyone who knows me, like, you just got to tell Rachel, like, it's okay, be a person, you know? And in that moment, like, no one had ever said that to me. Like, it's okay to just be a person. It's okay to not, like, or even like you said, like, just to be a perfect version of what my life should be, you
Yeah.
know? That's
Awesome.
pretty hard.
Well, I promise we're going to get to more uplifting stories as well, but I want to give Keisha the opportunity to kind of share any unique challenges that she's faced. So yeah, let you go.
Yeah. Honestly, listening to Rachel kind of reminded me of something that recently happened. Um, it was about a year ago, a little over a year now. But of course, I was working for a company that I did enjoy. I was working for Centria. And at that moment, I was in Arizona. So I was out of the state, away from home. And I get this call from my kids. And of course, everyone has iPhones now. So, you answer the call, and I'm just like, okay, let me see what's going on. They're just missing mommy. I'm going to be on my way in a couple hours. So I answer the call, and they are just crying, upset, and like one screaming, the other one, and they just have this look of terror in their face. And I'm like, what's going on? What happened? Like, I'm gonna be on my way. Like, what's going on? So they were with their father. What I didn't mention or start off with is that I am divorced. I've been divorced now for goodness, quite a few years, 2016. Um, and at that time, about, shoot, I don't even know, 16, about 4 or 5 years after our divorce, their father was involved in an accident where he was shot and paralyzed. So it flipped his life upside down, and my kids as well, because it was a scary moment for them. But we had got past this time, so it everything was calm. They were back visiting their dad, getting back into that normal routine. But what I didn't realize was that it was the anniversary of when he was shot. And the kids were there, and he had a breakdown. And in that moment, there was nothing that I could do. And I felt so powerless as a mother, because it's their father, and you want them to have that time, but it was just like he was causing that pain and that terror in their eyes in that moment. So for me, it was really, really upsetting, because you're trying to do your thing as a mom, you're trying to work and be out there, and but when things happen that you just don't expect, it really throws you off of your track, off of your mindset. So for me, it led me to the decision that, okay, I can't work like this. I have to work where I am closer to home and able to support and, you know, do whatever I need to do in the moment. And it was one of those decisions that, things just seem to be going so great when you're working and when you're providing for your family and you're feeling like, okay, I'm in a groove now. This is working out. And then when it just crashes down and you're like, oh, what did I do this time? What happened? And for me, it was, I had to learn in that moment, you can't beat yourself up, right? You can't tear yourself down because this is happening and it's outside of your control. and you can only control what you can. So in that moment, I had to lean on my mom. I called her. She was able to get out there. She supported even my ex-husband in that moment, like with talking him through the things, getting him calmed down, getting him able to get to a mental facility and get some help in that moment, and calm my kids down and get them back into a safe environment where they were calm and just waiting for me to come home. But it was one of those things again that just led me to this fact that you find work and you think that, okay, I'm doing great, this is awesome, I love this opportunities, there are new things that you get to learn, but then it's sometimes you have to change that, you have to pivot from that track. So it just, Rachel, you just led me to think about it's the changes that we make too when it comes to our children. It's these people, these little people that we have created, and we're trying to grow and continue to support. And then at work, we adopt and grow our families, right? Because we work with other people and their children, and it's like they almost become our children too. So we're supporting and loving all these children, and trying to help everyone to be able to change their lives and have things work out lovely. But it gets hard. It does. Life just throws you off track sometimes. So it was one of those moments where, again, I'm glad that I have different women who I can lean on, who we all have similar situations where things have just come up unexpectedly and we've had to change something, but we've still been able to get through it and get past it. And we're still here supporting and loving our families even now, and trying to reach out to others to let them know too that they're not alone and we're here. And we can all come together and be able to lean off of each other and not feel ashamed about our stories, but share, because we know that we're going to increase our strength amongst women, empower each other.
Yeah. I thank you so much for sharing that story, Keisha. You shared that story with me before, and I think it's just such a powerful example. And I think all of these are, like, think about it, like we're 5 people in a room, in a virtual room with each other, and we all have a story like this. And so I think, like, what does that mean for those of us that aren't in this room? Like, there's others out there that have gone through these things, and we think that we have to hide these things when we come to work, or even when we're out with our friends. Like, I didn't tell a lot of people or communicate with a lot of people about what was happening with my children ever. And so I think, like, creating that safety of, like, it's okay to be a person, and being a person, our lives and our families aren't going to be perfect, or maybe they're perfectly imperfect, and just like everyone else's is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're better together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that we've heard some of the tough realities, but I also know that all of these things have only made each of you stronger. So based on your experience of balancing parenting and your career, what advice would you give to a new parent that's also a behavior analyst? Robyn, I'll let you give some advice.
Yeah, I love this question. And my mind immediately goes to, just one piece of advice. I have a lot of advice if you're willing to listen. But I think what I'll start with is prioritize self-care. When you are a parent, everyone needs a piece of you. And when you are doing this kind of work, you're giving yourself to a lot of different people, a lot of different tasks, a lot of different responsibilities. And so it's going to become second nature that you put yourself on the back burner, that you let your mind tell you stories that you're too busy, that you're not worthy, that you don't have enough time, that you can't get to it because of X, Y, and Z. And I just want to remind you, those are just thoughts. They are not truths. They are not actuals. There's some validity, right? There's some duality that could exist there. But when you prioritize self-care, you are sending a powerful message to your mind, to your body, that you are worthy, that you are whole, that you are deserving, and that you fill your cup first because that cup pours into everybody else. And it's, there's a lot of cliche things that we hear about self-care being selfish, or self-care being, you can't pour from an empty cup, all of those things. But there's so much truth to you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot give more of yourself if you are depleting all of your resources. And when you hear self-care, maybe your mind was already telling you, yeah, when do I fit that in, right? That was probably one of the automatic thoughts that comes up for so many people. And one, just notice that that's the first thought that you're having. And two, start really small. Comparison culture, social media, it's going to interfere. It's going to tell you that self-care is extravagant, that self-care is expensive, that you are taking days off to take care of yourself, that you're going to spas, that you're having guys' night out, that whatever it is. And those things could be self-care, but start with the basics. Start with the things that are low-hanging fruits. Start with the things that are accessible to you. Taking a pause, taking a breath, practicing a mindful moment, getting out in nature. Like, our connection with nature can refill our cup, and it's free. Go for a walk, go on a hike. And maybe you do those things alone, or maybe you lean on your community. Self-care doesn't have to be alone. So prioritize yourself, take care of yourself so that you can show up and be the best parent that you can be, that you can provide that unconditional love, and that you can remind yourself of your worthiness, and you can show up and be that badass parent that your kids are going to be like, dang, my mom's a badass.
Awesome. Thank you, Robyn. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I love
I've
that
heard
because-
that this panel presentation has had a significant impact on the audience, and that there's a growing demand for more support. So Kajza, can you tell us about this new community launching called Haven, and what does it stand for?
Yes. I'm going to pretend that I have it memorized, but I don't. I'm not.
That's okay.
I've got it written down
It's
on the
just
side. I'll get
another
there.
acronym. What?
Yeah, I know. It's what we do here. I will have fluency at some point. I'm just not there yet. So Haven is an acronym, shockers. And it stands for honesty, advocacy, vulnerability, empowerment, and nurturing. And really what what the community is about is connection. Is uplifting each other. It's representation of individuals from all different backgrounds. It's a place in which we support a courageous approach to life. And that doesn't mean like I'm going to go skydiving. That means like a courageous aspect of being vulnerable and willing to communicate and connect with others. And we're, as a group, you start to see some of the stuff that we've shared, and it's not just about hearing the difficulties that we've been through too. That is a portion of it, because I do think like all of us have shared some form of isolation when we were going through different aspects of our lives. We've all shared different data points here, but those like our lived experience are those are just one data points in our however year-old lives. I won't put anybody on blast. But those
Respect
are just
your
glimpses.
elders.
1 year, Robyn. But there really is, we all have different things we've gone through. And a lot of times the more we open up and share those, we find somebody that we connect with that has gone through it and can support us through that, or has gone through something similar, can connect you with a resource, connect you with support, connect you with some mindfulness things, and also encourage you to be your best self, whatever that looks like, whatever that looks like in that moment and in that today, and also allow you the space to say, it's okay that you're not this Instagram influencer looking person. Spoiler, nobody really is. That's all fake. It's all curated. But to create a community where that is acceptable. You're accepted for who you are today with what you're going through today, and we're also here to support you. We're really excited for it.
Yes, yay. Well, I will be sure to include links and more info on Haven in the show notes. So now I want to talk to you about our slogan. So the slogan for HiRasmus is focus on the child in front of you. We provide the best clinical platform so providers can focus on what truly matters. On this podcast, we like to close by asking our guests to reflect on their own children or the children closest to them, and share advice on how they maintain that focus in this busy world that we live in. So I'd like each of you to think about one way that you keep the focus on the child in front of you. Keisha, do you want to go first?
Sure. Individual dates.
Love
I mean,
that.
So
sometimes you
fun.
never know. It's so easy to take the whole group out, but it's like, no, let's just focus on one person at a time so we can really get that connection and that time together and talk and go out. So I've been doing some little individual dates with my kids and I really like it. It's fun. They're talking to me more. That's the other thing, that sometimes the conversations are so funny that they're unexpected and you're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess you'll tell Johnny then when you go back to school, huh?
That's a
Love
win
that.
for everyone. That's awesome. Okay, Rachel, do you want to share? How do you keep the focus on the kiddos in front of you?
I really just I like to give space for them to know that they're accepted. So especially like with all of my children, like anytime I interact with them, like I just want you to know that I accept you, and no matter what, I will unconditionally love you. You never have to do anything to earn my love. And I'm here to just, accept you and love you and support you. And as long as you're, I actually saw this on I don't know, like a teen mom like interview where it was like, this is really bad. I'm like TikTok, like Farah is like, as long as my child is like seen, safe, and I don't remember the other word, that's bad, but seen, safe, and knows that they are loved no matter what is how I, kind of continue to make sure I'm focusing on the person in front of me and not who I wish they were being or what I think they should be.
Awesome. Love it. Robyn?
So this might be a shocker, not for you all, since you follow me. Step number 1, take care of yourself. Step number 2, pause and be present. So I really make an effort to put all of the noise down, put the things down. That to-do list is still growing. The phone is beeping, the tabs are open, all of those things. But when I can be present with my son, I can build the connection. I can practice gratitude with him. I can help him identify his values. I can model and lead by example. And so it starts with pouring into my own cup, taking care of myself, and then just truly being present. And so, Keisha, it's kind of similar. Like, I don't have dates. I love that, but I do have time where I put it aside. It's like, this is the time with my son, and everything else gets to go on the back burner. And that's okay, because nothing's burned down yet.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you, Robyn. Kajza?
I was thinking through, I'm like, oh, I have to pick just one. I think I have two things. Oh, shocker, I'm going to go outside the lines here a little bit. I have two things that I think I try and do, and I want to like be transparent here and vulnerable in the aspect. I don't always succeed in this, but two goals that we really have in our family. One, I do pretty consistently with my daughter, and I ask her after school, "How was your day?" I don't ask her, "Was your day good?" Or sorry, I tell her, "Tell me about your day." I don't say, "How was your day?" because I don't want to hear good. I say, "Tell me about your day." More open-ended, gives her the opportunity to tell me things that are important to her. Also tell her like, what was the best part? Ask what was the best part of your day, and then what was a part of your day that didn't go as you hoped it would have. And just to open up some of that dialogue and space for her to know that it's a safe place to come to. Um, and we share on all ends. So I'll share that information with her too. If my husband's around home at the time, sometimes we have to divide and conquer with the kids. So I'll also share that information, or we'll have those conversations with her. And then the other thing that we do is we have a very strict no phones, no electronics at the dinner table. And so that is time where my phone might be blowing up in the background for people texting, G-chatting, all the things. But we have a very strict no phones, no technology during dinner time. And we call each other out. My daughter, we're a pretty like low tech family, so we don't have like a tablet, or we have a family tablet. Like she doesn't have her own. But my husband and I, if one of us has our phone at the table and like even looks at it, flips it over, my daughter or my husband or myself will call each other out like, what are you doing? You can use it only to look something up if we agreed upon something to look up, because we're debating upon a really stupid thing about like, what's the scientific name of this flower? Like, that is a weird conversation that we've had before.
I love
But
that boundary.
right. But like when we do allow technology, it's in the aspect of bonding during that time.
Mhm.
It is, and not in a way to allow the other stuff. And really, like, it's only an hour. That's if we let dinner go that long, which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But it's an hour, and that hour is meaningful and important.
Love it. Thank you all so much for joining us today and just sharing your inspiring stories. And remember, in the midst of everything, it's the child in front of you that matters most. Until next time, stay focused and take care. Thanks for joining us on Hi Rasmus and Friends, Stories Behind the Science. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to share inspiring stories and foster empowerment within the autism community. See you next time.